Alright guys, welcome back to the video. So this is going to be the final part of making the entryway table here. As you can see, we're pretty much done with it. All that's left to do is the least fun part of any project, and that is the finishing stages. And this is kind of the biggest reason I've been procrastinating on doing this part of this project, is because this is not an enjoyable part of any furniture project. Taking the time to go through and sand everything up properly takes a lot of work, and it's not all that rewarding, because right now we have a pretty good looking thing, but that sanding is what's going to take it up to its next level. We also have to go through and do a whole bunch of edge profiling, so especially on our drawer fronts, we have to go in and add a chamfer on the top, on the doors, all that kind of stuff. On our little cabinet sections, our shelves, they still need some final cleanup. Just basically, we're going through and doing everything. So the table is now all fully cleaned up. We have all our surfaces fully sanded, as nice as I can possibly get them. I can't find any possible scratch marks. I've gone over this thing with my video lights and that, just going and getting some raking light in there, making sure we don't have any weird scratches and that, and on any of our surfaces here. Everything is looking great. So now we're gonna get the opportunity to use some of our tried and true dark walnut stain. Now I did a whole video talking about the two stains that I bought. I bought this one and their Java stain. Both of them actually came out looking really good. I love the color that both of them give to ash. I left my sample piece somewhere. I think it's either in the house or in the shop, buried somewhere. So I really wish I could find it to show you guys, but you'll get to see what it looks like when we actually get working on this piece. So the really nice thing about this stain is that it's a linseed oil based stain. So it's a totally natural stain, which means that there's no harsh chemicals, which is great because it's currently minus 20 degrees Celsius here in Calgary with who knows whatever kind of wind chill we're dealing with at the moment. So it is a little bit too cold to have the doors and windows and all that open if I was going to be using any other type of stain. So this stuff is going to be absolutely amazing for working in the winter here. So the other really nice thing about this stain is it is actually a wood finish as well. Because this is a linseed oil based stain, it basically just acts like any other Danish oil. go. We now have 2 coats of the tried and true stain, as well as 1 coat of the tried and true varnish oil. And this thing is looking great. That finish still needs to cure up a little bit. We're still a little bit tacky. I put the coat of varnish oil on it about 12 hours ago, which means we still probably got 12 hours to go till it fully cures up. So now we can go through and put everything back together. We can mount our doors, drawers, all that kind of stuff, and we can screw our top to the base so that everything is actually secured together. And this thing is looking its absolute best. I just want to let you guys know that I started a Patreon page recently, so if you'd like to show your support for the channel, there will be a link in the card above as well as the description down below. I've got 3 different tier levels, each with their own set of perks and that you can enjoy. If you join the top tier, you get to be a part of a monthly design session that happens on the first Saturday of each month, as well as free access to all of my digital plans and SketchUp files for all past and present projects. So if you guys are interested, I would really appreciate it if you're willing to go check that out. But anyway, let's get right back into the video. So with everything back together now, I want to talk about a mistake that I made while doing this, and that is disassembling everything to do the finishing, because that clearly led to a lot of different issues that I still have to kind of work out here and there. So mainly with our doors, now after taking them off and then remounting them, our gaps are no longer as perfect as they were when I took them off. That door is actually pretty good. This one is a little bit crooked, but our gap on the bottom is still even enough that I think it's going to work. But I can't quite seem to get this door back in the same position. Same thing with our drawers. Our gap on the top here is just a little bit larger than it was when I had it originally set up because I took the drawer sides out completely. I fully dismounted the slides, and no matter what I do with the adjustments now, I can't really seem to get it back to the point that I'm happy with. So in the future, if I was going to do the same piece again, I would do a lot of pre-finishing and pre-staining. Before I put anything together, as soon as the doors were done, I would have stained them and put them together. Same thing with the drawers. Before I mounted the drawer sides on there, I should have pre-stained them, got them fully finished up, then mounted the drawer slides on there, so that when you're making your adjustments, you're making them to the final finished thing. You're not having to take everything off, then remount it, do all that kind of stuff. So that's just one of those good lessons to learn. Again, we don't really have any kind of disastrous things. It's not like anything is completely wrong. It's just not as perfect as it was before, and I'm still going to kind of mess around with things, see if I can adjust some tightness of screws and placement and all that to see if I can get things back where I want them to be. But overall, it would have been way easier, and I would be much happier with the project if I just left things where they were before I did all the staining and finishing that. But anyway, with all this back together, now we need to work on our drawers because we still have big holes going through our drawers, and we need to put a bottom in there. So this is why I do not ever work with plywood wherever I can possibly avoid it, because right now I paid a decent amount of money for this sheet of plywood. I remember I bought it back when I was doing the bedroom set. I think I used it for the back panel and the drawer bottoms and all that. And it is now pretty much garbage. So the only way that I can store my plywood is stashed back in the corner, pulled up tight against the wall, which should theoretically keep it nice and flat. The problem is that over time, the top area kind of has a tendency to pull out, which I didn't think was going to be that big of a problem by the time I got it into these smaller sections for my drawers. But now that I've actually isolated out the material that I would need to use for my drawer bottoms, there's no possible way that I can get these flat enough and flexible enough to fit into my drawer boxes. Right now, it's looking like my only option is going to be running down to Home Depot and buying more materials. So now that we have our pieces of leather that are going in our drawer bottoms, we need to solve the problem, and that is the uncanny valley. So if you guys aren't familiar, the uncanny valley is when things to humans look too similar, too realistic, or things like that, and it makes you feel slightly uncomfortable. When I look at leather like this in the bottom of the drawer, the first thing I think of is my own skin. That is the very similar color, and it creates that uneasy feeling of just looking at a drawer full of skin at the moment. Some people might make that connection, other people won't. But for me, as soon as I see this color and the fact that this is leather, all I can think of is that this is a living thing's skin. And that is a little bit on the disturbing side. My wallet here is actually made from completely natural leather. I love the color that it ages to over time. But I've had this wallet for a little over a year and a half now, and it's taken that long of actually getting it to that point. So for many years, these are gonna stay that kind of uncomfortable skin color. Now, one of the things I've tried in the past is dyeing leather. You can buy alcohol-based dye, you know, from Candy Leather and that. They have all these different colors. And I actually have a whole bunch of bottles of this stuff in the cupboards behind me. And the trick is on something like this, that is just a big piece of leather, it never works. And I've followed every solution you can find online to how to dye leather, you know, nicely, and there's no good way to do it. It comes out looking all mottled and gross every single time I've tried it. So the solution to that is just to buy pre-stained leather. But in this case, this is the leather that I have. I don't want to be spending a bunch of money on a whole side of leather in order to do these two drawers, so we need to color it using what I have in the shop. And that is where our tried and true stain comes in handy. So this was just something I wanted to see what would happen. So I've got the Java stain here, and I did this one corner of this piece of leather, and it turned out amazing. Not only is that a perfect color, but it's also completely even. This is a large enough area that if you just did it by rubbing it on with like the alcohol-based dyes, you would notice splotchiness and that to it. Whereas with the oil-based stain, it actually works out beautifully. So I put the coat of the tried and true stain on it, then I let that cure up for a little while. Then I put this leather sheen that I got from Ardeck here in Canada. It's just basically an upholstery polishing thing. It just adds a nice sheen to the leather, which makes it nice and smooth in that. That's cured up overnight too. So overall, it does look pretty good. Now, the tried and true stain is obviously not a perfect solution to dyeing or coloring leather. Clearly, as you can see, it kind of looks splotchy. It's not very super even and anything like that. Overall, it's probably not the solution to coloring leather. But for my purposes, it works out just fine. This looks pretty dang good in my opinion. And it eliminates that kind of gross skin color looking stuff that you're putting in the bottom of the drawers. Now it just looks like old aged leather, which is a lot more appealing to most people. And on to the very last part of this entire build, before we can actually move it inside, is we need to put a back panel on here. So I've been procrastinating on this for about a week now because I haven't been able to decide what I want to do back here. Because on one hand, I could go with solid wood, I could also go with plywood, or I could go with something else. So if I went the solid wood route, this is a pretty big space. So I only have one piece of ash left over that would work for making the back panel on this, and that is a 10-foot by 8 or 9 inch wide 8/4 piece of stock. And in order to make that piece work, I only need 5 pieces that are about 1/4 inch thick out of that massive board. So I'd have to cut that whole board off at 55 inches because obviously I can't pass that whole thing through my bandsaw to get a couple strips out of each side. And overall, that'd be a pretty good waste of material in there. I wasn't super thrilled with that idea. Plus, doing a solid wood back panel on a piece of furniture like this is kind of a waste of money because in total it would probably cost me, 15, 20 bucks in material, and you're never gonna see it. Unless you're squatting down looking into the cabinet, you're never gonna see the back panel anyway. So it's a decent amount of money and work for something that is quite literally never going to be seen, and is not really important that it looks good if it is seen. So what we're gonna be using instead is more hardboard. So after using it on the drawer bottoms, I realized that I actually really like the hardboard material. It's super cheap. I was able to buy a 4x8 sheet of 1/4 inch hardboard for, I think it was 27 bucks. That is just cheap as can be. It's super easy to work with. I can sand, I can do everything to it without really any hassle. And the other part of this is that it doesn't look horrible. Unlike plywood, it doesn't have those like filled knot holes, stuff like that. It just is a nice flat color. And if I was doing something where the back panel was gonna be more visible, I could very easily paint it. I could do stuff like that to it. And because it's super cheap and easy to work with, if it ever gets damaged or broken, I just slap a new one on. It's not that big of a deal. All right, so there's our back panel, and that was probably the easiest back panel of any piece of furniture I've ever made. Now, I will say that this does make this look more like an IKEA piece of furniture. You know, IKEA furniture typically has those hardboard back panels, not super classy. But again, in the case of this furniture, you're never going to see the backside. It's meant to go up against a wall. You're not meant to see this side, so it's not that big of a deal. And from the inside of the cabinets, you really, unless you're squatting down, because this is a very low table. Again, I've got it up on a table right now, which is why you can fairly easily see in the cabinets. But if this is sitting on the floor, you're really never going to be seeing that back panels. So it really is not a good reason to spend a lot of money, time, and effort making a really beautiful back panels. And I actually much prefer this compared to the plywood panels I did on like the bedroom set at the beginning of the year. So this is a lot cleaner, a lot simpler, and cost a heck of a lot less money. So overall, if you just need a quick and easy back panel, don't overlook hardboard. It's actually a really good option. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this project. There is going to be one more video in this little series where I'm going to take it inside, get it all set up, and we're going to kind of sit down and talk about the things that went right, the things that went wrong. I'm going to give my final opinion on the tried and true stains, even though right now I can very safely tell you guys it did come out looking a lot better than I was expecting. And overall, I'm super happy with the tried and true stains. I feel like I should mention that because a big part of this video was about that staining. So it's probably important to give my opinion of it in the same video. But I'm going to give a much more thorough review of it because I still have to do some final cleanup of this. The table has been sitting out in my shop for about a week now while I've been working on other stuff. And so it's kind of covered in dust right now. And then that way, when I get it in the house, it'll be much easier to, you know, look at all the details and that and figure out what areas look really good, what areas look bad, all that kind of little stuff. And so overall, I'm super happy with the way this thing looks. I'm super excited to get it in the house, you know, get it set up and finally start using it because it's a beautiful piece of furniture. And I really love how it came out. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you in the next one.